go ahead and get us started. So first of all, I'll start with the formalities. Welcome to the School Planning Committee meeting of Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. I'm going to go through our usual disclaimers, which is in keeping with the ongoing emergency executive order from Governor Baker to limit gatherings and maximize social distancing, and under legislation passed to address remote board meetings during this emergency declaration. This meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by committee members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards the quorum. This meeting will be broadcast via ECAT, either live or with a recorded version, which will be available as soon as possible after the closure of the meeting. While conducting meetings remotely, we will work to keep meeting operations as close to our standard procedures as possible. And in order to do this, we will have board members here, and other members will be joining this webinar as participants. Any vote that will be taken during this meeting will be taken via a roll call vote. We will do our best to follow the timelines as indicated on the agenda. And when the meeting is getting ready to adjourn, we will adjourn via a roll call vote of the committee. I would like to just make it clear that there will be no public participation during this meeting tonight, that we have a pretty important agenda and some decisions that are before us. And I want to make sure that this board can stay focused on that work and focused on that decision. And so to that end, I am probably going to be structuring this meeting a little bit more formally than we have been when we've had public participation and in discussing elements of the project. What I'd like to start out by doing is just running through our list of committee members and confirming that everybody is in attendance. And if you could confirm that with me verbally, that would be great. So I'm going to start. Dr. Alicia Cabral. Here. Jackie Wiseman. Here. Caroline O'Neill. Here. Dave Twombly.
Here.
Ann Weintraub.
Here.
Connor Reed.
Here.
Dottie Fulgenetti.
Here.
Dave Field.
Here.
Ken Carlson.
Here.
Patrick Helen.
Here.
Jamie Stebbins.
Here.
Billy Soberai. I know Billy's here. I can see him. Billy? Well, I'm going to skip that for now, and hopefully when we get to have to vote, he'll be able to unmute. And Jane Martin, I'm here. We are also joined tonight, as usual, by our trustee project team from both PMA and Perkins Eastman, and it's great to see all their faces. And in addition, Connor, I'm going to let you do the introductions, but I believe that we are also joined by town council tonight.
We are. We have with us tonight Michael Kennefic from Mead, Tellerman and Casa, who is the town of Easton's general counsel in relation to the legal opinion relating to omissions that was shared with you in advance of this meeting, and to help advise the committee on any questions on that front.
So I think with that, before we get into the procurement update piece of the meeting, I am going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes, which everybody received prior to the meeting. They're the minutes from Wednesday, January 13th, 2021. Could I have a motion?
O'Neill, so moved to approve. Fulgenetti, second.
Great. Roll call vote. Dr. Cabral?
Yes.
Jackie Weissman?
Yes.
Caroline O'Neill?
Yes.
Ann Weintraub?
Yes.
Connor Reed?
Yes.
Dottie Fulgenetti?
Yes.
Ken Carlson?
Yes.
Patrick Helen?
Yes.
Jamie Stebbins?
Yes.
Billy Soberai? No. Jane Martin, I'm a yes. So that's all in favor with the exception of Billy, who is here but seems to be having some audio problems. So with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to, I'm not sure who's going to start us off. If it's Walter or Chad, but I will turn it over to PMA so they can walk us through where we are and what we need to do.
You got it. It'll be me to start, and then I'll hand it over to Chad. So good evening, everyone. So just a quick overall agenda, call to order minutes already completed, procurement update, overview of the bid results, alternate number 1 discussion, and discussion and vote to award contract. Then we'll move to a quick project schedule update with schedule summary, the budget, the cash flow update, and schedule the next meeting, and then adjournment. So the minutes were taken care of. So we are pleased to present to you the committee that we received 6 bids, 5 of which were below the estimated and anticipated budget, 1 above. Please keep in mind that this is variance is in conjunction with the $750,000 estimate for the water treatment upgrades, which will take place as part of this project, but we're not part of this bid. So it'll be a separate procurement that we'll go through for that portion. So we're very happy with that. Alternate number 1 was priced out by all 6 bidders, and we're happy to review that as well. Before we move into a discussion for alternate 1, and I just wanted to take a minute to thank everyone, and PMA would like to take a moment of the committee's time to thank the school planning committee, the focus groups, the community forum participants, the Easton School Department, and specifically the leadership team, which was headed by Dr. Cabral. Without her engagement and knowledge and support of the project, it would not be as successful as it has been to date. Her enthusiasm and ability to generate involvement from all of her staff and the public has a direct correlation to the ability of the project team to create these drawings and specifications that these bidders were able to work through and bid. And what that did was help the clarity of the drawings for these GCs to bid. And as you can see here, we have roughly a 10 to 15% bid savings on top of the estimate. So we're really thankful for that effort that Dr. Cabral put in, and we couldn't be more excited to move forward with the next phase of the project, which will be construction. So thank you to everyone, and specifically Dr. Cabral. With that, we'll review the quick alternate that was discussed. So on the right, you'll see a graphic of cafeteria, dining 2, and a couple of the main corridors. The base bid was the resilient, and the alternate would be to provide terrazzo tile. So this will be a discussion that's going to happen tonight as part of the vote to award the contract, and it'll be either to include what was proposed in the base bid or to take the upcharge from the proposed general contractor for the alternate, or the bid for the alternate, and include that with the award as well. So terrazzo is a little bit more high durable product, and linoleum flooring is great, but it has a life expectancy that's not as long as the terrazzo tiles. So that'll be a decision that the committee will be able to make tonight.
Walter, quick note about this.
Yes.
I don't think we ever actually told the committee we were doing this.
I think we discussed this. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. So if we didn't tell you, because I remember it slipped me as whether or not we actually talked about it, we knew we were trending under budget and that there were opportunities to potentially do something to bring it back up or to add something that was talked about as in the previous meetings. So we did decide that let's throw this in there as an add alternate just to see what the pricing will be like and whether or not we can afford it. Because it is, as Walter said, it's much more durable and the most ideal world. And I think looking at the bid results, we probably should have terrazzoed the entire building, but we didn't. So this will be the next best thing. So you'll get a very durable finish in that cafeteria.
In a high traffic area.
That very high traffic area.
Absolutely. So thank you, Dan. And I appreciate the drawing. That was really easy to follow as well when I jumped in there. So I believe at this point I can turn it over to Chad, and Chad, I'll continue to control the screen. So feel free to let me know.
Can you hear me
if
okay,
you want me to move it.
Walter?
I can hear you.
And I'm just going to remind the committee that I'd like to let PMA get through this presentation before we field any questions. So if you have questions, just hold them for the end. And I may ask you to stop screen sharing once you're done this section so that I can see the gallery. And I may also ask for questions to come through the chair so that we can figure out who's best equipped to answer them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, everyone, for all your hard work over the years that led us to where we are now. Certainly a good position to be in. First, I want to just make sure everyone's aware that tonight is a vote for a recommendation to award the contract. It's not the actual contract award. This recommendation will be sent to the select board. They have a meeting scheduled for Monday evening, and we are hoping that with the select board's approval, then the contract can be executed. So that's sort of the timeline and process, at least in the short term. So with that in mind, I'd like to provide an overview of the process and what we being PMA Perkins, have been working on over the past week or so since the bids came in on last Tuesday, February 23rd. So upon receipt of the bids, they come in electronically, and PMA quickly checks each bid form for a handful of criteria. Some of that criteria might include acknowledgement of the addendas, making sure the bid forms are signed. We're looking to see that the unit price forms are completed and filled out. We're looking to make sure that there is a bid deposit provided, that the contractors have current DCAM certificate of eligibility. DCAM is the Department of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance. So there are a handful of cursory checks that we do as soon as we get the bids in. After this initial cursory check is complete, we sent out the unofficial bid tab to the school planning committee later that same evening. And we had noted the full due diligence reviews were underway at that time. Those do typically take a bit longer. So in that next level of detailed review, what we do, we PMA, is we analyze all of the general bidders to identify any potential issues within their bid submissions, and particularly their DCAM update statements. So DCAM is the state agency that certifies contractors to bid on projects like this one. As part of that certification, these contractors must apply annually for renewal of their certificate of eligibility through DCAM. Bids that are submitted need to include a DCAM update statement, and the purpose of that update statement is to identify any new information between their most recent application for certificate of eligibility to DCAM and the date of the bid. So we're looking for any new information, new projects, new legal proceedings, anything like that that might have come up since the last time the Department of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance had certified them to bid on the project, or any public project really. So during PMA's review of the update statement, we extract Massachusetts court records, and what we do is filter for any cases between the date of each individual contractor's DCAM certificate application and the bid submission. Any cases which fall within this timeline are required to be disclosed in the bidder's update statement that was submitted with their bid. So we're doing a side-by-side check of the Massachusetts court records and the update statement within the bid to identify any potential discrepancies. So during this review, in the Easton's case, PMA did identify a handful of cases which appeared in the court database but did not appear to be shown in the low bidder's update statement. We consulted immediately with the Attorney General's bid protest unit, and they recommended that we contact the low bidder to request clarification. So we did just that. We reached out to them seeking clarification for the cases that we saw in the database that weren't clearly identified in the update statement. So the low bidder did provide clarification. They provided their explanation, and that explanation was provided to this committee for review and consideration during tonight's meeting. So hopefully everybody had a chance to take a peek at that. So more recently, fast forward to this afternoon, and we received a letter from the low bidder stating that they believe the other bidders might have had a similar issue within their submissions. So this is pretty recent, 4 hours ago or so. So PMA did quickly check the information provided against PMA's records, as we had already extracted the court database. We have it. And we did confirm that the legal proceedings in question for the second low bidder were in fact prior to that contractor's DCAM renewal application. Because they're prior to the renewal application, they're not required to be listed on their DCAM update statement. So a little bit of history on the topic. Prior to 2010, the Attorney General's bid protest unit consistently ruled an omission of a legal proceeding on an update statement was a material omission and required rejection of the bid. However, around 2010, there was a court ruling in Fordyce versus Hanover. And since that time, the Attorney General's bid protest unit has maintained that the bid may be accepted or rejected at the awarding authority's discretion. And I'll actually turn it over. We have Easton Town Council Michael Kenefick on the call who can speak a little bit more to this process, so I'll turn it over to him at this time.
How you doing? So in this case, PMA did an excellent job running down the timeline and all the cases that weren't disclosed in the either the updated statement or the bid document. So we looked into it. The town contacted us and asked for what the law is here, and I think Chad kind of went over it a little bit. In this case, there are a number of cases that are open against CTA, and with that, because those haven't been disclosed, those would constitute material omissions under both Chapter 149 and 801 CMR, the regulations that kind of guide you here tonight. Material omission isn't specifically defined in the statute, and it's not specifically defined in any of the regulations. However, there's a lot of bid protest decisions that have kind of, over the course of years, sort of defined it and set parameters and kind of just explains or sets examples of what would constitute a material omission. In this case, I would think that, or it does, the omissions in this case would constitute material omissions. Generally, the bid protests kind of have given us a definition. It's a material omission if the omission hides information that would affect the awarding authority's selection of a contractor. It's a material omission if the non-disclosure undermines the objectives of the competitive bidding laws. Also, if it upsets the equal footing principle, meaning it will result in a disadvantage to other contractors who have made full disclosures to the awarding authorities. And also, if the non-disclosure is something that could have caused the awarding authority to reject the bidder, if it had been known throughout the bidding process. So I think in this case, you have a clear example of an omission that would be considered material. So tonight, the decision that has to be made by this committee is whether or not to recommend going to the next bidder or another bidder on the list based on those material omissions. So as Chad had mentioned, prior to 2010, this type of omission would have required the committee to reject or not recommend the award of the contract to CTA. But the Supreme Judicial Court in 2010, in the Fordyce decision that Chad had mentioned, said that, established a change in the law that gives the committee the discretion to award the contract even in the event that they find out that there was a material omission in the bid documents or the updated statement or the DCAM certification. So we've kind of had a back and forth with CTA a little bit. I think it was last Friday, they were asked to kind of just try to explain what happened and why they didn't disclose these cases to the town. They had provided a list of cases that are open. They gave some short reasons for the non-disclosure. And then we also received a memorandum from their counsel. The argument that their counsel had made was essentially, I mean, it was 2 or 3 pages, but to boil it down, the memo said, listen, there was a material omission. However, you can go with CTA anyway. And, they pointed out Fordyce, which we just discussed. And I think at this point, it's almost a mea culpa to say, listen, we made a mistake. We didn't disclose all these additional cases. But we were hoping that you go with us anyway, essentially. So I think that if anybody has a question about the law, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. But I think essentially that's where we're at right now.
Chad, could I just ask you to end the screen share as Jane had asked so that Jane could have full view of the committee members to field those questions? Thank you.
So is there any member of the committee who has a question that they would like to ask? And we can determine who's best suited to answer that question.
Well, I'll go first. Chad, obviously, as you indicated, and Mike as well, a lot of this information has been coming in, including from the low bidder directly as recently as a few hours ago. The materials shared with the committee include a memo when, at the Attorney General's office's recommendation, PMA reached out to the low bidder last week, and they responded acknowledging, providing some color to some of these omitted cases, but on one of them outright saying it was unintentional, this should have been included. But then they go on to say the case is immaterial. But just to confirm that perhaps colloquially or as a matter of opinion might be the case, but from Mike, MTC's analysis and the regulations and law, it is a material omission, regardless of what we think of the case. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions from committee members about what we've been presented with so far this evening? So I'm not seeing any other questions from committee. Go ahead, Connor.
So, Chad, you referenced the new information that I believe was submitted by the lowest bidder to you earlier today regarding potentially similar omissions by the second lowest bidder. Can you confirm you've reviewed the court record and that's not actually the same situation, and based on the information we have available, the second bidder does not have material omissions?
Yes, Connor, that's correct based on our evaluation. So they did have legal proceedings. We actually had them in the file that we pulled, but their date of DCAM certificate of eligibility renewal application was January 9th, 2020. And the most recent legal proceeding was from 2019, December 2019. So the renewal application was after the most recent legal proceeding that was cited to us. So yeah, it was a different situation, and not actually required to be disclosed in the update statement.
Okay, I was going to have a follow-up question, which was, as long as it's after, they are not required to disclose it, but I think you just confirmed that for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, the DCAM update statement is only to capture items that are new from the date of application to DCAM.
Thank you. Anything else? Caroline?
So does that mean, okay, I admit I didn't get through all 350 pages today, so I don't know if this was in there, but is there information about the second lowest bidders' omissions, even though they did occur before the prescribed date, that would have required their admission?
So they were not actually omissions, as they were not required to be submitted. So they were not omissions in PMA's investigation of those items.
They were not omissions. So what kind of thing would they have been required to? You're saying there had it been an earlier date, had it been a later date that this had the date before the application, we would have had, do we have the information about what that second lowest bidders, what the concerns were, even though they were not supposed to be in the bid, because they didn't have to be in the bid because that was not required based on the bid dates?
So our due diligence review stops at where DCAM's certificate of
Okay.
eligibility leaves off.
Okay.
DCAM has reviewed anything prior to that application date in their certificate for eligibility. So we
Okay.
don't actually go back and look at it. And these are very, very large contractors, each of them. So it's not uncommon to have legal proceedings, and there are a lot out there. So we're just looking at just the update. But they
Okay.
were not omitted in that instance.
No, I knew that they were, you know, that what they did was correct. It's just that I wondered if we had any further information about what occurred earlier, but obviously that wasn't required, and so we don't have it. Thank you.
Connor?
Maybe this is a question for Mike, but one of the core principles of public procurement is equal footing, right? So not only would we not have information on any bidder, the low, second, third, going back farther than the kind of corners of what we are allowed to ask for to bid, it would not be fair of an awarding authority to go for 1 out of 5 bidders and start looking at cases that are effectively grandfathered out of the statute. Is that fair?
Through the chair. Yeah, so in this case, Chad did a tremendous job. He just spent all day today going through the timeline. And we determined that as far as the second bidder, it wasn't an omission. So absent there being, absent an actual omission, you wouldn't be able to consider that in rates or the second lowest bidder's application. You can't start just digging kind of into their history. You got to look into what the disclosure is. If that's not something that would have been on the table, you really don't, you shouldn't be kind of digging into that.
Right. Any other questions from committee? Go ahead, Caroline.
Well, then I'm going to assume that you've done other kinds of vetting, I mean, in terms of reference checks and so on, or does that occur later? I mean, I just, it makes me uncomfortable to know that things can just get grandfathered in, but I totally understand that it has to be equal footing. That makes perfect sense, but there's other kinds of vetting that occur, right, in terms of the contractor's reputation?
So I'm going to turn this back. I'm going to ask that probably Chad answer this question in terms of the process that this whole bid process goes through, in terms of what you collect for references and how that all works.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Of course. Yes, so the process under Chapter 149 on a project of this size requires that we pre-qualify and actually invite all of the general contractors. So late last year, we published a request for qualifications, and each of these contractors submitted their statement of qualifications. And there's a review at that time where we're looking at a lot of the same similar project experience. We are looking at legal proceedings. We're also checking references. So at that point, if somebody is deemed not qualified to complete the building, that's when they're bounced. But yes, that part of the check has absolutely already happened for each of these bidders, and they have been found to have been pre-qualified to bid on the project.
I know you guys are super diligent, and I just wanted to sort of make that a public acknowledgement that you've already done further vetting. Thank you.
Dottie?
So Jane, just to get clarification, are we voting on whether this is a material omission and then voting on whether to move, whether to award the contract to the first or the next bidder? How is that process?
So I believe that when we get to that point, I can ask for a motion to, and I'm not sure that we're there yet, but we will ask for a motion to define this as a material omission and to move to the next bidder. And of course, that is then up to the committee to vote on that.
Great.
Any other questions from committee members about the process or the information that we've seen so far? Sorry, Jamie, was that your hand? I think I saw your hand.
It is. So, I see on page, and like Carol and I have not gotten through 315 pages here, but is it fair to ask Perkins Eastman, in one of these cases on page 9, this is Assabet Valley Regional Tech, and Assabet Valley Regional Voc, School District versus Perkins Eastman, and versus CTA Arch. So there's a number of folks listed here. So, you know, and I understand this is, I'm just reading it. It says there was 5 years after substantial completion, Assabet Valley filed suit against the aforementioned parties for negligence and breach of contract. So is there any voice that Perkins Eastman can lend to us about? You know, they've worked with CTA in the past, and maybe can shed a little bit of light of, you know, what's transpired here.
Before we turn that to Perkins, Michael, I wouldn't mind if you weighed in on the fact that we are now asking one of our contractors to provide their information on this.
So the main issue before the board right now is the material omission and whether or not to move on to the second bidder.
Right.
Second bidder because of that material omission. Getting into prior projects and reputation and stuff like that really isn't something for the board's consideration tonight. Chad and PMA, they spend a tremendous amount of time doing their due diligence. It's not, you know, it's not just looking up the court cases, but they're making phone calls. They're investigating. They're digging up everything they can about these contractors. But I kind of warn about having the conversation kind of drift off into any of these contractors' reputations. I think we should just stay focused on whether or not we want to elect an award to either two or another bidder.
Right. And every member of the committee was given the packet that both Jamie and Caroline have referred to now, so you have that information before you. So I think it's best if we follow the advice that we just got from town council and try and stay within the confines of what's before us on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, and Carolyn, Jane, in follow-up to that, I just want to make sure that we know what we're voting on, right? If we are saying, you know, what are we omitting? And I'm going to admit, I can't tell you everything that we're agreeing to.
The material omission is really what was laid out, which was they didn't, the information, Michael, again, I'm going to ask you to clarify. What we're really looking at is the material, the material non-disclosure of information, is that enough for us to move on to the next bidder? That's what we're looking at tonight. Is that, Michael, is that correct?
Yes, it would be, and it's spelled out in the statute, in the regulations, in all, you know, the avalanche of bid protest decisions. So we're focused on that material omission. So, and I don't want to just repeat what Chad said, but CTA essentially had three chances to make sure that they disclose of their litigation history. First of all, in the certification process, then through the updated statements with BCAM, and then through also the bid documents. In this case, even though, well, some of the cases were filed after the certification, they were never disclosed at any step, not even through the bidding process. So I think that is that is a basis for either rejecting or not recommending an award or contract to them and moving on to the second bidder. I'm sorry, Connor had a question.
Jane, may I?
Go ahead. Yep, you're good.
For Chad and Mike, is it accurate? I mean, obviously, to Jamie and everyone else's point, this is obviously a ton of information. A lot's come in last week. But the question is, there was a discrete legal question which has been answered by the town's attorneys, which is, was the omission, particularly of Cheviot Corp v. CTA v. ARC Insurance, material? And the answer is yes. Then the next question is, can an awarding authority pass over or reject a low bid because of a material omission? The answer is it used to actually be required automatically until that Superior Court case, and now it is a discretionary decision. Am I correct so far?
Yes.
Okay. And so then the decision before the school planning committee is, does the school planning committee basically want to exercise its discretion to overlook that material omission by the low bidder rather than go to the next lowest bidder who did not have any such material omission? Is that correct?
Mhm.
And the next lowest bidder being roughly 1% variance in price.
Is that correct, Michael?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
So are there any other questions or clarifications required from the committee? And with not, I'd like to ask if anybody would like to make a motion on the table. Connor?
I would make a motion to determine CTA's bid as non-responsive due to the material omission, and to therefore select Bright, if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry, as the next lowest responsive.
Wiseman second.
Wiseman second. Wait, okay, I have a motion from Connor. Jackie seconded it. With that, I am going to move to a roll call vote of the committee. Any other comments before I do that? Okay. I'm going to move to the roll call vote. Dr. Cabral,
Yes.
Jackie Wiseman,
Yes.
Caroline O'Neill,
Yes.
Ann Weintraub,
Yes.
Connor Reed,
Yes.
Dottie Fulgenetti,
Yes.
Ken Carlson,
Yes.
Patrick Helen,
Yes.
Jamie Stebbins,
Yes.
Billy Soberai,
Yes.
Jane Martin, I'm a yes. With that, we have a unanimous decision of the school planning committee to move on and make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to go with the second lowest bidder. I'm not sure if I phrased that correctly, which is Bray Brothers, which is great, right?
Mhm.
Great. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to turn this back over to Walter, because I think we're gonna need to return to the whole alternate discussion, and if I need to get a vote on that, do I need to get a vote, an official vote on that as well? Would that be your recommendation?
Chad, do you think there should be a vote?
Yes, I think so. I think the
Right.
recommendation should be sent to the select board.
Yep.
No problem. I'm going to pull up the screen share again. just
Thank
so that
you,
can
because
see.
I need the
There we go. So, oh, 1 second. It's not sharing.
that's okay.
There we go.
So
Go ahead, Jane. Sorry.
before I ask for a motion, I'm going to ask committee members if anybody has any questions on this. I can't see you, so if you could just go ahead and direct your questions to Walter, that would be great. Walter or Chad. Are there any questions on this alternate number one discussion, which I believe we have had at the table before? I don't know that we've ever voted, but I have memories of having a conversation about this.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah, well,
This is Patrick. I just have one quick question.
Yep.
Is the discussion around the alternate because of the existence of the current level of bids, or was this just the alternate that we discussed before as a potential for the high traffic area, and thus we're including it in this scenario because of what we've had received? I don't know if there's any cause and effect to those, or if it's just we're bringing it back in.
I think Dan kind of laid it out. We did feel like, if money was no object, we would have done everything in Terrazzo. And as we moved through the estimate phases at DD 60 and 90, we did realize that we were trending on or under budget, and there's never a bad opportunity to add a highly durable material into the school, and with the bid savings available, Perkins was able to put this in. There is no requirement to take it, but it is fully a committee decision and option.
It's coming up at this point because of we happen to have a meeting. This has been determined.
Yep.
We're bringing it in now. Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely. This would be the only time.
You have to vote to accept this.
Right.
And can I have you back up one slide? I think
Yeah,
it's
no
one
problem.
slide, Walter, that you had thank you, so that people can actually see the cost impact of that alternate, adding it into the project.
I believe you would move from roughly 14.4% to 14.3%, maybe
Okay.
less.
So this is Jackie. I just have a quick question. So was the reason this was not put in initially was just the cost to put this in throughout the building would have been too much at that point?
It was when you're trending at the budget, sometimes you put, or near tight to the estimated budget, you would add in credits, potentially. If the bids came in over, you could take scope out. Where we were trending well under, we had the opportunity to provide some better quality products at a higher cost, and that the committee would be able to decide upon. Just again, kind of referencing back to the statement I had made and the involvement of everyone. This is kind of a result of the hard work that everyone has put in.
And as we moved through the process, when we did the schematic and then we went into DD, we were trending on the budget, and then we started to see, because of the COVID situation and the bidding situation, we started to see it sliding down. So the numbers were, like, we had the same exact building, but numbers were coming in lower, and the estimators were telling us that we were going to be even lower. So we felt that there was an opportunity here to try to enhance the building a little bit.
Other
Again,
comments?
you don't need to take it if you don't wish to.
So I'm going to ask, can we stop so I can see, stop screen sharing so I can
Yes.
see my committee members.
Yeah.
So I can see who's making a motion and who's seconding a motion.
No
So
problem.
I am going to ask that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen that we accept bid number 2 from Brave Builders, which will include the add alternate of terrazzo tiles at the cost of, I think it was an additional $156,000.
148, 537.
Sorry, 148, 547 from the original.
537.
Thank you, from the original project bid amount. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Sorry.
I just want to repeat the whole thing.
Give it to Carol.
Dottie can have it.
I have a motion from Patrick Helen and a seconded from Dottie Fulgenetti. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call vote of the committee. So let's see, Dr. Cabral,
Yes.
Jackie Weissman,
Yes.
Caroline O'Neill,
Yes.
Ann Weintraub,
Yes.
Connor Reed,
Yes.
Dottie Fulgenetti,
Yes.
Ken Carlson,
Yes.
Patrick Helen,
Yes.
Jamie Stebbins,
Yes.
Billy Sobrai,
Yes.
Jane Martin, yes. Can you hear my dog? My dog backing in the background? I apologize.
No problem. I will screen share again. Quick project schedule update. We are now over here, March 2021, looking to get shovels in the ground as soon as possible with the substantial completion date, followed by the demolition in the fields. Nothing has really changed. When we do finally have the contractor on board, there will be an update or a schedule provided from that contractor as a construction schedule, which would be good to have. Goes into a lot of detail. Quick update on the budget at this point in time: 5.3 million billed to date, estimated 2.93 million in MSBA reimbursement. We just submitted ProPay, I believe, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, 21 to the MSBA yesterday or today, and we'll be looking for that check from them in a few weeks for the district. I don't have any new business. Chad, do you? Dan or Dawn or Sarah?
I don't have any new business.
No, thankful.
And Jane, I'll let you take it if you have any new business.
So the first thing I'm going to ask is if there are any committee members who have questions about the next steps in terms of the schedule. And if you do, you can just address those to Walter or Chad. My quick clarification is that now what will happen is at the select board meeting, did I hear us at the beginning say that this will be agended for the Monday evening select board meeting, Connor? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that once the select board votes to award, that's when the wheels will get moving. And so when are we going to be meeting? When do you need this committee back again to start looking at clearly what the next steps are and what you need from us? Walter?
I think it's a lot of work on our end. I'm going to guess a month is what Chad's going to say, but I'll defer to him.
Okay.
Yeah, if we at this stage, we usually recommend that we just pick a recurring meeting each month, whether it's the first, second, third Wednesday, whatever works for this group, and just send out a recurring invite, and that way it's on everyone's calendar, and if we have one that conflicts with the holiday, we can just handle it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, great. The only other piece that I am going to note for committee members is that kind of outside, offline, Dr. Cabral and members of the project team, we have started working to determine the best way for us to reach out to the community and put some kind of community presentation together in terms of what has been happening with this project since, probably really since the override was passed. And I almost forget when that was. Go ahead, Connor.
November of 19, which is 15 lifetimes ago in COVID time.
Exactly.
Well, not to put pressure on you,
Nope.
but the select board's going to be awarding, in theory, the contract as long as the paperwork checks out. We have on that agenda, I assume at a minimum PMA will be there to speak to the contract. That would be a good time to make the update on what's happened.
Yeah, well, I can certainly come and prepare. I can talk and prepare kind of the highlights, but we're actually talking about something that will be, we kind of organized, a little bit, more formal, almost like a community forum, but not a community forum, that we could then break into like small 5-minute chunks. So if we wanted to push things out on social media, we could. So that's our hope, to get back, kind of get the project bubbling back up to the surface, because this is all such great news for our community. So that was my only other update. Is there anything else that we need to be addressing tonight? Any other questions from committee members? Nope, seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Could we go ahead and, do we want to schedule, do we want to stick with the first Monday of the month and go April 7th? Or do we want to go a different Wednesday of the month?
Not the 7th, please. That's a placeholder night for possible joint finance committee and select board budget reviews.
Okay. Is the second Wednesday of every month available? No, that's a tough question for everyone. Is there any standing town meetings is what I'm asking.
There's a FinCom meeting that's on the second Wednesday, but it's at 7:30, so we usually skate right out of here right into that. So. Okay. And there's no time, so it's even easier. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would be so can I ask people to tentatively hold Wednesday, April 14th at 5 p.m. for the next school planning committee meeting? And that moving forward from that, we would probably tentatively try and hold our meetings on the second Wednesday of every month. And go ahead, Connor.
Sorry to monopolize so much of the talking. Was it Jamie or a few people? 5 o'clock's a pretty tough time for some members, right? I think, didn't we discuss
shifting back
5:30 or 6? Not that I want later meetings, but
I can shift back to 5. Is 5:30?
Jamie's here, so I'd ask.
Yeah, no, that is correct. 5 is difficult. 5:30 or 6. 6 is preferable. 5:30 will.
Okay.
But,
okay. Yep. That works. I think that will work. The one thing I'll have to check is I typically have a Wednesday evening I often have a Wednesday evening meeting, but if we're 6 o'clock, I might be able to cut it close enough that I could get out and make it to my Wednesday evening meeting. So we'll figure it out. Tentatively right now, what I'd like to ask is that we go April 14th, and we will start that one early because I think I heard Jamie say that there was a FinCom meeting right after, so we want to give them time to get to that. So can I do the next meeting at 5, Jamie? Is that okay? Or would you prefer at 5:30? I want to give you plenty of time before your FinCom meeting is what I'm thinking.
Well, as Patrick mentioned, they're standing at 7:30. So
Okay.
6 is fine too, but it'll always run in. If we're doing the second Wednesday of the month, it'll always back up to the
Okay.
Finance Committee.
Okay. So I'm going to say 5.
Switching Zooms is not a hugely time dependent
Right. Yep.
item. So yeah.
Got it.
I think we can
Okay.
do that.
So I'll tentatively say 5:30 or 6. Let me just, if you don't mind, if I can check on a couple of things just to make sure I can make it work on my schedule too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions this evening? With seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
So the motion was made by Patrick, I believe, seconded by Dottie Fulgenetti. And with that, I'm going to move to roll call vote. Dr. Cabral,
Yes?
Jackie Weissman,
Yes.
Caroline O'Neill,
Excitedly, yes.
Ann Weintraub,
Yes.
Honor Reed,
Yes.
Dottie Fulgenetti,
Yes.
Ken Carlson,
Yes.
Patrick Helen,
Yes.
Jamie Stebbins,
Yes.
Billy Sobri,
Yes.
Jane Martin, I'm a yes. With that, thank you, everybody, for your hard work and all the time that you've committed to this. And boy, we've got a lot to look forward to in the next couple of months. It's very exciting. So thanks, and we'll see everybody in a month.
Thanks, Jane.
Hi, everyone.